Billionaire's wife came home and found the maid, locked in a cage by husband. What she did next shocked everyone. Emma Cole froze in the doorway, her designer purse slipping from her hand and hitting the marble floor with a dull thud. Inside the basement, the maid, Grace, was crouched inside a metal cage barely big enough for a dog. Her hands clutched the bars, her eyes swollen with tears. Across the room stood Daniel, Emma's husband, calm, cold, and unbothered, as if nothing was wrong. "Daniel, what is this?" Emma stammered, her voice shaking. He turned slowly, his face unreadable. "She needed to learn respect," he said simply, as if locking a person in a cage was a lesson, not cruelty. Emma's mind spun. Grace had worked for them for only 3 months. Quiet, polite, always on time. What could she have done to deserve this? But the longer Emma looked into Daniel's eyes, the more she saw something dark she hadn't noticed before. Something that chilled her. Grace sobbed. "Please, ma'am. Please get me out." Emma's breath caught in her throat. For a moment she couldn't move, couldn't think. Then Daniel's voice cut through the air, cold and final. "Don't touch that cage, Emma. You have no idea what she's done." Emma's fingers hovered over the lock, trembling. "What did she do?" she whispered. Daniel's smile grew faint and sinister. "You'll find out soon enough." And that was when the basement lights flickered, and something moved behind Emma. Emma spun around, her heart hammering in her chest. For a second, she thought she saw a shadow slip across the hallway. Fast, silent, like someone running away. "Daniel, who else is down here?" she asked, her voice trembling. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned his back to her and began rearranging some boxes on a nearby shelf, as if the caged maid crying behind him wasn't even there. "Daniel, answer me!" He finally faced her, his calm expression cracking just a little. "You weren't supposed to be home this early," he muttered. Emma's blood ran cold. That wasn't guilt in his voice. It was annoyance. She stepped closer to the cage, ignoring his warning. "Grace, tell me what happened." Grace lifted her tear-streaked face, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't steal anything, ma'am." "I swear." He said, "I took his watch, but I didn't. I just found it under the couch and put it back." Emma's eyes widened. She looked at Daniel. "You locked her up because of a watch?" But Daniel didn't flinch. "She's lying," he said quietly. "She knows exactly what she did." The way he said it made Emma shiver. There was something off about him. The slow, measured tone, the lack of emotion. This wasn't the husband she knew. Emma bent down and touched the lock on the cage. Daniel's voice snapped through the air. "Don't!" She froze. He stepped forward, his eyes dark, his jaw tight. "I said don't touch it, Emma. You're making a mistake." For a brief second, silence filled the room. The air felt heavy, thick with something Emma couldn't name. Then a loud thump came from upstairs. Everyone turned. Daniel's expression shifted. Surprise, then fear. Grace started crying again. "Please, ma'am, someone's up there. Please let me out." Emma's heart raced. Was someone else in the house? Or was Daniel hiding more than just a cruel secret? She took one step toward the stairs, but Daniel grabbed her wrist, hard enough to make her wince. "Stay here," he said. "I'll handle it." Emma stared at him, her pulse quickening. His grip was firm, but his hand was shaking. As he let go and walked toward the stairs, Emma realized something terrifying. Her husband wasn't just angry. He was afraid. And whatever was upstairs was something she was never meant to see. Emma waited until Daniel disappeared up the stairs before moving. Every sound echoed in the basement. Grace's quiet sobs, the faint creak of Daniel's footsteps above, and the steady thump of Emma's heart pounding in her ears. She leaned close to the cage and whispered, "Stay quiet, Grace. I'll be right back." Grace grabbed her hand through the bars. "Please, ma'am, don't leave me here." "He's not the same man you think he is." Emma swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Grace looked toward the basement ceiling as if afraid Daniel could hear her. "I saw him bring someone down here last night," she whispered. "A man in a black coat. They argued and then—" A sudden creak from upstairs made Grace stop mid-sentence. Emma slowly pulled her hand away and whispered, "I'll find out what's going on." Then she turned, took a deep breath, and climbed the stairs. At the top, the mansion looked different. Too quiet, too still. The lights in the hallway flickered softly and the faint scent of cigar smoke hung in the air. She followed the noise to the study, Daniel's private office. The door was slightly open. Through the gap, Emma could see her husband pacing the floor, phone in hand. His voice was sharp and low. "I told you not to come here again." "I have everything under control," he said. A pause. "No, she doesn't know. She thinks Grace stole it. Just leave town before they trace anything back." Emma's breath caught. Trace what back? She pushed the door open just enough to see a strange black briefcase on his desk. Something she had never seen before. It was locked with two metal clasps and a red tag that read, "Property of Federal Reserve." Her mind spun. Why would her husband have something like that? Suddenly, Daniel turned toward the door. Emma pulled back just in time, pressing her body flat against the wall, barely breathing. He opened the office door, scanned the hallway, then sighed and went back inside. Emma knew she had seconds. Quietly, she slipped away and hurried back to the basement. Grace looked up at her, hopeful. "What did you see?" she asked. Emma hesitated, her heart racing. She didn't want to scare the girl. Not yet. But she couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. "Grace," she whispered, "I think Daniel is hiding something dangerous, and we're both in trouble." Grace's lips trembled. "Then please, get the key." Before Emma could answer, a faint click echoed from upstairs, the sound of the study door closing again. And then, Daniel's footsteps started coming down the stairs. Fast. Emma's breath quickened as Daniel's footsteps grew louder, each one heavier than the last. She looked around frantically. There was nowhere to hide. The basement was bare except for boxes, the cage, and a single hanging light that buzzed overhead. Grace whispered urgently, "Please, ma'am, don't let him see you near me." But it was too late. Daniel appeared at the bottom of the stairs, his face blank. Too calm for what was happening. "Why are you down here again, Emma?" His tone was low, steady, but the danger in it made her skin crawl. Emma tried to sound composed. "Because I needed to understand what's going on." "You've gone too far, Daniel." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Too far? You think I enjoy this? Everything I'm doing? It's to protect us." Grace let out a small sob. "Protect us? You locked me in a cage." "Quiet!" he snapped, his voice cracking through the air like a whip. Emma stepped between them. "Daniel, listen to yourself. You're scaring everyone. What are you protecting us from?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. Then he said something that made her heart stop. "From the people she works for." Emma blinked. "What are you talking about?" Daniel's voice lowered to a whisper. "Grace isn't who she says she is. I found her snooping in my office last night, right after they called me." "Who?" Emma demanded. Daniel's eyes darted toward the ceiling, as if listening for something. Then he leaned closer. "The same people who've been following us since I bought that company. They want what's in the briefcase, and she," he pointed at Grace, "was planted here to get it." Grace shook her head violently. "No, that's not true. He's lying, ma'am. Please." Emma's mind raced. She didn't know who to believe. Grace's fear looked real, but Daniel's paranoia sounded just as convincing. The air grew thick. Daniel took a slow step closer, lowering his voice to a growl. "Give me the key, Emma." Emma froze. "What key?" Daniel's expression darkened. "Don't play with me. You were in my office. You saw the briefcase." Her blood ran cold. "He knew." Grace whispered from the cage, "He's dangerous. Please don't give it to him." Daniel's hand slid into his pocket, and Emma heard the metallic click of something small and deadly. "Give it to me," he said again. "Now." Emma's pulse roared in her ears. She could feel the weight of the tiny key in her pocket, the one she had quietly taken from his desk moments earlier. If she gave it to him, she'd never know the truth. If she didn't, she might not live to find out. Daniel took another step forward, the light above them flickering. Then suddenly, a loud bang echoed from upstairs. All three froze. Daniel turned his head toward the sound. "Stay here," he ordered. But Emma didn't listen. She lunged toward the cage where she twisted the lock. Click. The cage door swung open. Grace stumbled out, eyes wide with fear. "Run!" Emma whispered. "Now!" Grace didn't hesitate. She ran, barefoot, trembling, straight up the stairs as Daniel shouted behind them. "Emma, what have you done?" Emma turned and sprinted after Grace, the house echoing with Daniel's footsteps pounding close behind. The mansion, once warm and grand, now felt like a trap. Every hallway too long, every door too far away. "Grace, this way!" Emma gasped, pointing toward the main hall. But Grace suddenly stopped. Her eyes widened at the front door, and Emma saw why. Two men in black suits were standing there. They weren't robbers, they weren't police. They looked like agents. "Mrs. Cole," one of them said, flashing a badge. "Step away from her." Now Emma froze. Grace turned to her, shaking her head in panic. "Don't believe them! They're lying!" Daniel appeared behind them, out of breath, face red with fury and fear. "You see? I told you!" he shouted. "She's working with them! They're after me!" The taller agent stepped forward. "Mr. Cole, we need that briefcase. You're in possession of stolen government property. Don't make this worse." Emma's heart stopped. "Stolen? Government property?" Daniel's eyes flicked toward her. "Emma, don't listen to them. They want to destroy us. Everything I've done, locking her up, keeping quiet, it was all to protect you." Grace screamed. "He's lying. He killed someone to get that briefcase. I saw it." The air crackled with chaos. Emma's mind spun, trying to make sense of it all. Her husband, the man who bought her diamonds, who smiled for photos, was standing in front of armed agents, accused of stealing from the government, and the maid he imprisoned was claiming he'd killed someone. Emma backed away slowly, her hands trembling. "Daniel, please tell me none of this is true." But Daniel didn't answer. He turned toward the study, eyes wild. "They'll never take it," he muttered and ran. "Stop him!" the agent yelled. Emma and Grace flinched as the men rushed past, boots thundering down the hall. A moment later, there was a loud crash, then the sound of splintering wood and shattering glass. Emma and Grace ran to the study door just in time to see Daniel standing by the window, the black briefcase in his hand. Papers scattered everywhere, the wind blowing through the shattered glass. "Daniel, please!" Emma cried. "It's over!" He looked at her, eyes full of regret, love, and madness all at once. "I only wanted to protect us," he said quietly, "but they were never going to let me go." Before anyone could move, he stepped backward and disappeared through the broken window. Emma screamed. The briefcase hit the ground below with a heavy thud as Daniel's body vanished into the night. The agents rushed outside. Grace fell to her knees, sobbing. Emma stood frozen, staring out the window, her world collapsing. The flashing red and blue lights soon filled the driveway, and officers stormed the house. An agent gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Mrs. Cole, it's over now." But Emma barely heard him. Her eyes were on the briefcase being carried away. On its side, beneath the government seal, a small tag was torn, revealing a hidden word scratched underneath. Project Valor. She didn't know what it meant, but somehow she knew this wasn't the end. Emma looked out into the dark night, her tears drying on her face, because deep down, she felt it. Daniel wasn't gone. To be continued.